Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to Commuters Live here on Sheffield Live 93.2 FM. Chris and Ellie here, and we have film directors and producers Harry and Josh Warren. Good afternoon.
Right, Chris, good
Hey,
afternoon.
good afternoon.
So, for our listeners, give us a bit of background. Tell us a little bit about yourselves.
I can go first if you want. I'm Josh.
Yeah.
I'm a director. Yeah, we've just been basically putting together a couple of shorts over the last few years, and yeah, we've always had a penchant for horror and that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's finally coming to head together now with this latest short of ours.
And
Yeah.
sorry, go on. Sorry,
No, go on, Chris. No, go on. No,
no,
it's
go on, Harry.
nothing
You
more.
go on. You go ahead a bit.
No, just saying. We've just been working hard for the last few years, and we're really excited about this one because we managed to get some funding for this latest short. My dreams have been dark of late. And yeah, we've just been going through the festival rounds, and so we've just been monitoring it and doing as much we can for it. And yeah, just excited for what's next, and excited to see how it does. And yeah.
I mean, who inspired you to become a director and producer? Who was your inspirations?
Well, it's funny because I mentioned the poster because I think we grew up on James Bond, and all those kind of
Yeah.
old action movies. And I think, like, for a long time, I personally would like look at the careers of people that are in those movies, the characters themselves. So I wanted to be a spy, of course, and for a long time I wanted to be a fighter pilot because I loved Top Gun and all that kind of stuff. But then I realized actually it's not the characters and their kind of careers that they want, but it's actually the movie business, and it's creating these worlds and putting you being able to visualize and put yourself in those kind of uh, like roles, I suppose. Um, and yeah, so yeah, for me, it's always been about like that kind of uh, almost escapism, I suppose. Yeah.
And what
Yeah, for
about you?
sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm listed as producer on this particular short that we've done, but I tend to be I'm more I consider myself more of a writer on our previous projects. I have been. This one in particular was Josh's baby, and it's not particularly narratively complex. So Josh sort of like handled sort of the writing directing side of it. I did a bit of script work on it. So I don't typically see myself as that much of a producer, though there is a bit of fluidity between our roles. We've got another friend involved in our sort of team. He's a producer as well, but there is a bit of fluidity between things. Josh is definitely the director, but yeah, I mean, but there's always been a fascination with how these things are made, and it's only increased the amount that you sort of that you look into it. You just it just the encourage the enthusiasm builds for these things, and like Josh, it's been quite an eclectic mix sort of growing up. From I mean, I've got Indiana Jones poster behind me, and then we love
Oh,
Bond and all
legend.
this kind of stuff. Yeah, so we firmly like we love that stuff for sure. But obviously with our own project, we've skewed a little bit more towards the horror angle. Although yeah, sometimes we'll take issue with just being called outright horror. Um, but yeah, yeah,
I mean, we've spoken a bit about inspiration like James Bond, Indiana Jones, all the classic movies. But if there was anybody that you could work with, actor-wise, director-wise, who would it be and why?
just to jump in there for me, I'd say I have to say outright. I'd have to say Kubrick, but I have to say that with a bit of like I want to, but I wouldn't want to because you know how meticulous Stanley Kubrick actually is
Yeah.
or was, and I think that I'd come away absolutely hating him, which I wouldn't want. But all the time in awe of him. But it put me right through it. I'm sure it would. Um, and but just the way he works. I mean, I I feel like I consider myself to be quite meticulous as well, and I'm just in awe of how he does things. and his complete command and control of a production. That's for me anyway. I'm talking about Josh.
I suppose I think it might be Sean Bean. I'd love to work with him.
Sean Bean.
But I think he's just always been in my life. Like he's sort of every now and again he'll pop up in a movie. I'm currently watching Snowpiercer, that TV series, and he's cropped up in that. And he's, I don't know, he sort of seems to have bookmarked my cinematic experience. I think, he's been in some great roles, some suspect movies, but I think he's always kind of been there, and I think he's like one of these actors that just keep going and keep doing stuff, and I think it's kind of cool. Yeah. So I think Sean Bean.
He brings an authenticity, doesn't he? And I think even as a person as well, you just feel like he's very genuine. Yeah,
for sure.
So you created a film called Margarine's Have Been Dark of Late. So tell us a bit about the process. I mean, how did that come together? Did it come actually quite quickly, or was it a long process to develop it, really?
I can answer that. I mean, it was quite a long process. The inspiration actually is based around a painting. The painting's called "A Fever Dream of a Night Being Devoured by Zama." It's quite a long title. By a Russian artist called Denis Forkas, and he's I've got to say he's still alive. A lot of people seem to not realize that he's still a working artist. Just because he's an oil-based painter, people just assume he's from the Renaissance or the Baroque period or something. Yeah. But yeah, so that was like the main inspiration. And I think for a long time we were looking to try and do something that was really short, maybe even less than 4 minutes, like a minute long, that we could do just because we were eager to shoot something. We wanted to prove that the style that we wanted to shoot in was worked, and we could tell a very small story like that. And so for the first thing for me was to get permission from him. And that just, as always, it just takes a long time because I'm corresponding with someone I've never met before. He doesn't know who I am, and he's had work plagiarized before and all this kind of stuff. So I wanted to really make sure that he was cool with what we were doing. And then from then, we then wrote the script, and I think we sort of kind of sat in it for a little bit. And I don't know, we were just kind of quite lucky that the round for the BFI network funding that we received kind of came up just as we were like kind of ready to, well, I mean, we've been ready to shoot it for a while, but we were kind of like getting like a bit antsy because we wanted to shoot it sort of roughly summertime, autumnal kind of vibes. And but we were lucky that it was brought forward because they were changing they were at the end of their 5-year like financial plan and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So we managed to squeeze in and get the project in, luckily, and get some funding. And from then it like kind of snowballed. It kind of just picked up legs, didn't it? And we were like shooting.
Yeah, I think
a couple of weeks, right?
Yeah, because as you said, we were looking to get this shot in the summertime ideally, and autumn was fast approaching. So we kind of received the funding, and within a month, we had to just like sort of hop to and get our stuff together really to shoot it. So it was a bit manic really, considering. But yeah, we were definitely ready to go with it. We were ready to put sort of quite a bit of our own money into it just to get it made, because we did believe in it quite strongly, didn't we? Mm-hmm. But luckily the BFI came through for us, and yeah.
I've got to ask Harry and Josh. You mentioned that you love like the horror genre. So what horror films inspired you to go down that you wanted to work in horror? What films inspired you?
For me, I think it's The Thing. I think that's the biggest one for me.
John Carpenter, classic.
John Carpenter's version. There's an older version, obviously, But yeah, his version is incredible, and I think it's just this, and then from that, which is strictly, technically a sci-fi, but I would refer it to horror as an Alien. Again, like similar kind of premise almost, in that, like, you've got people trapped in a single location. It's kind of an ensemble cast, and there's a terrorizing them, basically. I think it's just almost so simple that it's amazing. It's incredible kind of feat to do that. And I think it's just it sort of flipped a switch. I think I've always been into like kind of at least horror adjacent, or like darker cinema and all that kind of stuff. But when I watched those years and years and years ago, I realized that like it's in the horror scope that I think we should be trying to work it.
Yeah. For me, again, I call back to Kubrick, because he's just the man for me. But the Shining was a big turning point in sort of getting into films generally, but also horror. But I think he's with The Shining more than anything. It's sort of the what I took from it is more atmosphere, atmosphere and tension and terror, rather than outright horror. A lot of the times, and I think another influence of ours, probably going back to our shared childhood. Our mum was quite a big Hitchcock fan, and so I think those, the tension held scenes. I mean, even birds. I mean, even films like The Birds, obviously, is that like outright horror. I think that's always inspired us. And again, with like Josh was saying, it's always been a bit more horror adjacent. Um, we definitely know what we love about horror, and want to utilize it to like its full extent. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of horror adjacent stuff as well as just the outright horror.
So going back to your film, Marjorie's Been Dark of Late. I mean, without giving too much away, can you tell us a little bit about the plot of it?
Yeah, I mean, it's very short, so it's hard to do that without giving too much away. But it's essentially about a lone knight who's like fleeing from battle, essentially, and it's like essentially it's basically, it plays on your anxieties and things like that, I think, and what should be protecting him doesn't. I think that's probably the best way to describe it.
It's hard not to spoil it for sure, because it's so short. But yeah, I mean, it's just a knight fleeing from battle, sort of. He comes across a place of like refuge, and then encounters sort of a more unexpected foe. I guess you could say without spoiling it too much. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, well, fair enough. Thank you for sharing that with me.
Yeah.
I've also thought, I mean, for our listeners at home who want to break into this kind of industry, the film making industry, what advice would you give to our listeners?
I mean, for me, I think that a lot of people always say just go and grab something and go and shoot or whatever, and I think it's really interesting because not everyone has those means to do that. And what I actually think they're trying to say is try and find a way to practice. I think if you can find a way to practice filmmaking in some capacity, that would be that. It's a huge learning curve, and it's really like vital piece of the puzzle, I think, that a lot of people are trying to get across, but don't quite get it across properly. And by that, you got to find your own way to practice. So, some people might be able to just get onto any set that they can, if it's a short film, music video, or whatever, just doing, kind of even shadowing people, or like running, or making the tea for people. At least you're able to see how a set might work, going all the way to like drawing your storyboards and then putting them along like a side by side, and then just trying to imagine how it might feel in an edit. All those kind of things I think are really vital. Like it's about craft, I think, for me anyway. And so I think, I personally would say try not to, don't worry too much about playing with the big toys and the and like the big gear and all that kind of stuff, and like trying to get a script made and get all the funding you can. I think just focus on the practice, focus on the craft. I think
Yeah, I'd just say, I'd say team up. Um, I say don't try and be a lone ranger. I think a lot of people come out of like a film school or uni or whatever, wanting to, you know, direct everything, edit themselves, write it, produce it, score it, like absolutely everything. And I think it's only you're only limiting yourself at that point. I mean, it's okay to come out that way, but I think as soon as you can, me and Josh are fortunate. We grew up together, and we've got a close friend, a producer friend who's into the same sort of stuff. And we're gradually building it. It's still ongoing. We're gradually building a team around us. But I think the more you can learn to trust people, and get people on the same page as you, you realize it is really a collaborative process, and you can't do it on your own. That's what I'd say. I'd say find some people who share the same sensibilities. Yeah, for sure.
So, I mean, for our listeners at home who want to watch this short film, it's called "The Dreams Have Been Dark of Late." So, how can people get to see the film? Is it on streaming platforms? Is it on YouTube? Tell us, how can people get a copy?
well, at the moment it's in the festival circuit, so unless you went to a festival that it's playing at, I don't think you're going to be able to see it. Look, we are playing it in York this weekend at Dead Northern, and that's a great little film festival based there. And we're showing on Friday at 4 o'clock with a couple other shorts. But eventually, we're hoping to be able to get onto one of the horror channels on YouTube. That'd be the great place to see it eventually, I think. But I think the best thing to do is probably just follow our social media to find out when you can actually watch it, like online, for example.
Sorry, go on.
I was going to say our Instagram handle is at anti-room film, which is ANTE room film. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Josh. My final question for you two is, what would you like? Is there anything that you would like to say to our audience?
I'll let you take this, Harry.
Sorry, what was that? Anything you'd like to say to your listeners?
Yes, please.
Just check us out. Yeah, just go to our socials. We've done a couple of other films that are available to watch. That you can go back on. The last one was called The Gatekeeper. That's available to watch via our website, antiroom.co. And just look out for us. Hopefully you'll hear more of us, more from us in the future. But yeah, get out there, as Josh said, just get out there and film something yourself if you're interested in it. Get involved, get on a shoot. Just get out there and just make it happen. I have nothing more inspirational to say. I'm struggling to inspire myself. But yeah.
Harry, Josh, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Chris. Cheers, mate.